All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is No Final Bell episode 5. Yes, we have gotten to
We've
that
made
mark
it.
already. I'm probably going to have Marty start off with some Victory Road notes first before
Yes.
anything AEW wise.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, on Saturday, September 18th, we had Impact Plus presents Victory Road and it wasn't a terrible little card, but the main the main takeaway from from Victory Road on Saturday, Decay retained their Knockouts Tag Team titles against Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans. It was a pretty decent back and forth match. I honestly thought that maybe Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans would find a way to win, but, you know, that happened. Christian Cage retained his Impact World Championship against Ace Austin in a very compelling, very back and forth, very good match. Um,
I mean, as
there was
I
still a
thought.
sliver. There was still a sliver of hope that maybe Ace Austin would win, but um, Josh Alexander retained against Chris Sabin in a very compelling. It was a pretty long match too, and it was very good. I want to say maybe the match took like 45 minutes of just back and forth action. But the main takeaway from Victory Road, aside from Josh Alexander retaining his X Division Championship, is after the main event match, Josh Alexander issued Option C at Bound for Glory. And for those that maybe are unaware of Option C or really what that entails, at Impact Wrestling, if you hold the X Division Championship, you have the choice of something called Option C, where you vacate the X Division Championship for an opportunity to challenge the World Heavyweight Champion in Impact Wrestling. So Josh Alexander issues Option C against Christian Cage at Bound for Glory, potentially cashing in Option C at Bound for Glory, which, not for nothing, I would love to see that match. I think it would be an absolute banger. And, who's to say that maybe Josh Alexander becomes world champion?
I mean, yeah, I honestly thought that I was probably right. I knew that Christian Cage was probably going to retain his title. It was just too early for him to lose it already. Um, yeah, it would have been cool to have seen Ace Austin, the
Youngest world champion in history, but it is.
yeah. I mean, it is what it is. He still has some room to grow, I
He
guess.
definitely still has room to grow, and, who's to say that maybe somewhere down the line he eventually challenges again, but
Hmm.
he could also potentially enter the tag team championship division with Madman Fulton.
Yeah, I probably can see that happening. Honestly.
There's a lot of room for improvement and a lot of room for potential opportunities when it comes to Ace Austin. Like, you want to talk about building the future. Impact Wrestling has certainly built their future around Ace
I
Austin.
mean, but
And honestly, it's a good thing because Ace Austin is a freaking workhorse.
right.
At just 24 years old, the same
Hmm.
age as me, he's a freaking workhorse.
Yeah, I would happen to say it. I just think that Christian Cage is just really on his element ever since coming back into professional wrestling after such a long, long time.
Yes.
After actually, it's been 9 years since he's been in professional wrestling. It's
Yep.
been 7 years since he's been in the wrestling ring. But the thing is, he's on the top of his level. Yeah, he's the Impact World Champion, but let me tell you something. He would love nothing more than being the Impact World Champion, and I'm sure he likes nothing more than that. Yes, I know he would definitely like to be the AEW World Champion, but you know what? I would be totally fine if it ends up being, Bryan Danielson or somebody else, even Adam Cole going after Kenny Omega. But right now, honestly, it's very intriguing to see what direction they're going to go in. Of course, we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega and all the other stuff a little later on. As far as Josh Alexander and Chris Sabin goes, it kind of sucks to not see Chris Sabin, having the record for the most X
I mean,
Division title
I'm
reigns.
pretty sure he still holds the record, but I know he wanted to make it like one more to the record. He wanted to be a 9-time
I know,
X
and it
Division
honestly would
champion.
have been cool to see him win it and then eventually cashing in option C for the world title, but I guess that's not happening now. As far as Josh Alexander, yeah, it's awesome to see him cash in option C. I think he's nothing short of a great opponent for Christian Cage heading into Bound for Glory. Now, as far as who I think could win that match, I honestly think that it's probably still going to be Christian Cage retaining his Impact World title against Josh Alexander. Um, if there's anybody that I would love to see as the Impact World Champion again, I think it's Sami Callihan. He has that grit, he has that grind, he has that it factor that you want as your world champion. Not saying that Josh Alexander doesn't have it, he definitely does. He is that guy that can eventually become the champion. If that's the route that Impact's going to go, I would totally be fine with it. But if it's still going to be Christian Cage retaining, then, you know, you just build him up into even more of a mega star champion. He just has had those great runs in Impact, and who's to say that this run isn't any better than any of his other runs?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, Josh Alexander really proven himself as a legitimate X Division champion. Like, he's really come into his own. That's another person that's really come into his own in Impact Wrestling is Josh Alexander. He kind of was struggling to find himself
Mm-hmm.
after breaking up with the North and after Ethan Page left Impact Wrestling to go to AEW. So, Josh Alexander kind of struggled to find himself, but I think he has truly found himself now as the X Division champion, cashing in option C at Bound for Glory, and wanting to challenge Christian Cage.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. As far as that, I think that's the last bit of Impact news we have as we go on to a grand slam of events that's going to be heading into, tonight. I tell you what, I'm hoping, I'll definitely be watching it. I won't be
Yeah.
watching it tonight as I do have to work, but I will be watching it tomorrow and probably reminiscing 2 hours of great action. But as far as this, we go into this match, which was a decent, really good match. Honestly, Adam Cole beats Frankie
Oh, yeah.
Kazarian, but honestly, of that, was Frankie's shoulder up? That's the real question we have here. It
I don't
honestly
know,
looked
man.
like
When I saw it, it looked like Kazarian's shoulder was up. I don't think Remsburg had a good angle on counting the three.
honestly, I think that it definitely looked like his shoulder was up. It looked like it was like a 1-2. He had his shoulder up, but Remsburg still counted a three
If
anyway.
I'm Kazarian, I would challenge the ruling of the match. So, I would probably come out like maybe tonight or on Rampage and say, "Hey, Remsburg, I want a recount of that. I want a replay. I want to show you something. My shoulder was up. You counted the three. I don't think that's a fair ruling of And then maybe take it to Tony Khan or whatever.
I mean,
So
he's still going to get the opportunity to team up against the Elite anyway, so I really wouldn't be worried about it too much. It's great to see Adam Cole get his first victory outside of WWE, but honestly, in the way that he went about it with, Frankie's shoulder being up, I think that's not the right way for him to get his first victory, but you know what? It's best that he did. As far as another thing with Adam Cole sets up a six-man. See, this is what I'm saying. Sets up a six-man tag team match between him and the Young Bucks against Christian Cage and
and
Jurassic
Jurassic
Express.
Express.
Our thoughts on that? Honestly, I like it. We kind of figured that it was going to be something like that: the Elite versus Jurassic Express,
Well, no, no, no,
and
no, no. See, they are the elite,
yes,
but
they're super click
the
now.
super click.
But the thing is, I like it. I think it's going to be a great match. I think AEW is certainly going to hit a grand slam,
No
no
pun
pun
intended.
intended, for this event. Um, Adam Cole. I mean, it's hard to tell who's going to honestly win this match between both sides. I would like nothing more to see Jurassic Express and Christian Cage beating up on a Super Click, but you know what? The Elite, as far as they go, and now they have Adam Cole, have been an amazing faction. They have been really on fire. They've been on top of the world, and let me tell you something. I think that they are going to have a challenge at their hands. I think it's going to be making for some great television, some great action to see. And don't be shocked if, these 4 hours of action bring in, like, well, more viewership than they ever have. First off, this is the biggest venue that AEW has ever been in.
Yeah.
It's also going to be the biggest crowd, and it's also going to be the best matches that they ever put on, ever. And honestly, I'm just.
Something tells me that Rampage is actually, you know, but then again, something tells me that maybe it won't do as well as we think because it is going to be 2 hours and it is going to be after SmackDown. So, maybe. I feel like a lot of people are going to be willing to stick around because of the fact that CM Punk is having his first television match in over 7 years alone. I think that alone is what's going to make people be like, hey, let's, tune into Rampage.
Something tells me it's going to be. It's not going to be all 4 hours in one night. I
Well, no.
think it's going to be 2 hours, and then just going to have it as that. Then they're going to have it live on Friday for another 2 hours.
Maybe. I
That's
don't
that's
know.
that's what I'm thinking. Honestly, I've already stated on here. I really think that Rampage should be 2 hours anyway, and I think this week is a true test of how it's gonna work if they end up doing 2 hours. What I really would like for them to do is doing another 8 to 10 type of thing on a Friday on TNT. And I understand they're gonna have basketball season coming up in October,
Well,
so it's gonna be really tough for them to do, all these, the 2 nights in a row type of thing. And I know Wednesdays and Fridays are usually when NBA likes to be on ESPN.
mm-hmm.
But the thing is, a lot of times they also like to be on TNT. The thing that's gonna suck, honestly, is I would love for them to stick on TNT. I know eventually the plan is that they're gonna go from TNT to TBS so they don't have to combat with NBA basketball. But the only problem with TBS is once it comes to March, you still have March Madness that you have to deal with, and a lot of those times it might get. I know that they can combat it, and around those times that Dynamite and Rampage would be on, they would have it on different programming. But the thing is, you're still gonna combat it. You're gonna have to, if you really want to make sure that you don't have to worry about um, changing around your days and changing around your times, then you better go to like a programming where you don't have to really worry about sports that much. Like, I don't know, like a Spike TV or something like that. I mean, that would be totally fine with me to see them
Well,
on that.
the thing is, I don't know if Paramount Network, it's no longer Spike TV, it's Paramount Network. I don't know if Paramount Network is even a sub brand of Turner. So, they still have to keep within that Turner. But even still,
Is that
like,
why
I
they
don't
wanted
know.
to go to TBS? Because it's still
That's
Turner.
why.
It's Turner
Yes,
Broadcast.
it's still under Turner, is why they went to TBS. Because think about it, TBS,
Mm,
the TBS Superstation was the main home of like NWA and WCW.
right.
While they were like, so yeah, it was the home of NWA, and then NWA became Jim Crockett. Then Jim Crockett became WCW, and then they had
Right.
Monday Nitro on TNT, but then they had all their other shows on the TBS Superstation. So,
Yeah, so, like I said, it sucks that Frankie Kazarian couldn't have teamed up and then couldn't have made it like a 4-on-4 or like an 8-man tag team. But a 6-man tag team to start is something that I've been kind of wanting to go. They've been jaw-jacking each other, been going at each other. Now, the thing is, Marty, I know we didn't really have this down. I guess this can also be part of the thoughts. Do you think this will event...
Hey!
Sorry, the cat was trying to call. Don't mind that. The thing is, could you see it honestly turning into like a into the next pay-per-view? Do you think that it'll turn into like a pay-per-view match between, Jurassic Express and company against the Super Click, as you can?
I mean, obviously right now the direction is, building towards Full Gear, but I'm not exactly sure, like, what their plans going into Full Gear will be. But I think it's safe to say there might be some sort of program happening between Jurassic Express and the Elite. So,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I think that's what eventually can happen is, it leading to a pay-per-view match. And if it does, honestly, I would be all for it because then they would give the Elite something new, and honestly, it would give, Jurassic Express a chance to get some, anger away from them for always coming up short in these tag team matches for the tag team titles and stuff like that. To have them team up with Bryan Danielson, um, Bryan Danielson, Christian Cage, and Frankie Kazarian would be a great way for them to move forward into, whatever happens from there. If it's honestly another title shot, if it's another, if it's like other matches against other top tag teams, there I would be totally fine with it. Um, as far as somebody that honestly I've been really pissed with it. Honestly, has MJF been taking it too far, or does he deserve a serious ass whipping from Brian Pillman Jr.?
MJF doesn't know the meaning of too far.
Oh, I mean, clearly not, as he's just,
He's salt of the earth. He'll go as far as he needs to go.
he's literally getting underneath Brian Pillman Jr.'s skin. He
But
was.
that's his job. He's a heel. He'll get under your skin. So,
But,
like, if people get offended, then MJF has done his job.
right. I mean, of course, he's going to do anything that he can to make sure that Brian Pillman Jr. is off of his game. But the thing is, like, if you're watching as a fan, I don't care if you're a heel or a babyface, sometimes when you, like, do the stuff like he did where he was trying to talk to Brian Pillman Jr., up there or down there type of thing, and the way that, he was talking crap about him and saying how, your deadbeat your mom should have swallowed and all the other stuff. Like I just think that's just a little too far. And I know it's TV
Yeah,
14, and I get it. You can
understand,
kind of get
though.
away with whatever you want to,
I can
but
understand. It is a bit of a sour taste whenever he's, like, saying all
it's
of that
it's
stuff.
honestly I'm really hoping, because I think this match is honestly happening either like Dynamite or Rampage this week. I honestly think, or actually, I think it could even lead into like a pay per view match. But honestly, whatever happens with that, I really hope that Brian Pillman Jr. Gets him a nice little stiff, like, right or left to the face, and maybe tell him, hey man, look, this is a warning shot. You talk crap about my family again, who's to say I won't do it even harder next time. Um, don't be shocked if these two literally go after each other. It might be even something where MJF gets out of the ring and tries to run away, saying like, "Hey, screw you! I don't need this," type of thing. And don't be shocked if Brian Pillman Jr. goes out of the ring, tries to run up, and be like, "No, no, no! You ain't leaving, boy! You ain't leaving until I whoop your ass," type of thing. So, honestly, I really do think that MJF definitely deserves a ass whooping, and I think he needs a Cincinnati, Ohio style ass whooping. Um,
Coming all the way to Queens for a Cincinnati, Ohio ass whooping.
yeah. Um, FTR beat Matt Sydal and Dante and Martin, but man, the stuff that Matt Sydal and Dante and Martin can do in that ring, especially Dante and Martin himself,
Yeah.
he's been nothing but amazing. Every single week he's been, like, at least evolved with Dynamite in every sense of the word, and I'm all for it. I think He has been an amazing wrestler. But the thing is, if you can push him as much as you want to as a singles guy, but like I would hate for him, you know, for his brother to come back healthy, and then Top Flight being there, and then all of his momentum just goes to the wayside. Like,
Yeah.
you need to do something with this. Yes, I know that the momentum now is kind of sailed away with that tag team loss to FTR, but it's good in a sense for FTR because now you can build them further. I'm glad that they're not involved with Pride and Powerful really anymore. But the thing is, I would at least like to see one more type of style match between those two. I don't think that their whole stint is over with, even though yes they did compete against each other and got that all done in the out of the way. Um, as far as Pride and Powerful, we talked about it how they think that they're at the top of the level, and they probably are. But the thing is, like, even on like Rampage, I saw them come out and save the Lucha Brothers, like, and against the Butcher and the Blade. Now, who knows? There could be something between the Inner Circle and the Hardy family office. It'd be cool to see, faction against faction. But the thing is, like, you gotta do something more with all these factions. You
Yeah.
know, and I know Tony Khan said something like how you would eventually like to have a faction tag team titles, like a 6-man
A
tag team
trios.
titles, a
Yeah.
trios tag team titles. I would be all for it. I think it would be good. You have enough factions, and it'd also mean like you can get them to actually do a little bit more if you had those titles
Yeah.
in AEW instead of just having them and then all of a sudden they're not really doing much. If they had some like titles to go after, that it might be better to see these factions go up against each other. So I think that's eventually what AEW should do. That's the route that I think would be favorable for all these factions. Would be going after like some titles and everything. So I think that's eventually going to be the plan. As far as FTR, it's a good bounce back win after everything that they've been through. Um, but in the sense of Matt Sydal and Dante Martin, I just don't understand why it wasn't just FTR versus the Sydal brothers. To be honest, nothing against Dante Martin, but like it just made absolutely no sense. You just throw them together in a random tag team match against FTR. I mean, everybody's gonna say, "Oh, well, it was just a match they put together," type of thing. For time filler. Yeah, maybe that's exactly what it ended up being. But honestly, it still made for a good match. And like again, you just can't help but think that Dante Martin is just a hell of a wrestler, and the things that he does in that ring. Yeah, it's flippy dudes and it's all the other stuff. But you know what? Honestly, it makes for exciting television, and you cannot change my damn mind on that. As far as that, now Minoru Suzuki and Lance Archer challenge Moxley and Kingston. Um, Marty, do you think that next week's Dynamite is shaping up to be the best one yet in its history?
Yeah, I can say that. I mean, probably the best episode of Dynamite since the first Dynamite post lockdown. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that show and the only downside to that show was it was supposed to be in Rochester. That's the only downside. But however, Rochester has now been moved to next week,
Mm-hmm.
which we are going to that, by the way.
Yep.
So, you know, if you're a listener, maybe come by and say hi if you're in the area. If not, then, it is what it is. But, yeah, so that's the only downside to that. But other than that, you know, yeah, I would say that Dynamite Grand Slam is shaping up to quite possibly be the best Dynamite ever. So
I think so too. I'm just glad that Kingston and Moxley are gonna actually finally team up. I think it's cool to see Suzuki again go up against Eddie Kingston and Moxley. But the thing is, after that, after these two teams go up against each other, I would like for Moxley to do a little bit more against the talent that's actually on AEW against these
yeah,
talent that are from New Japan. Yeah, I know Archer is from AEW, but he's also in New Japan, and I
He's the
know
IWGP United States champion
and I
right
know
now.
that
So
Moxley, is also with both and stuff like that. But like, you gotta do a little bit more with him going up against talent in, the AEW roster, because ever since like losing the title, he just been so all over the place and not really doing much. Like, have him and Eddie like, team up and go up in tag team matches. Do something with them. Like, I think that this is gonna be a good match. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, crapping on like the thought process. I think this is gonna be a really good match for Dynamite. I think it's really gonna make the fans entertained. They're gonna see a great tag team match. They're gonna see two of the best tag teams going up against each other. Don't get me wrong. Minoru Suzuki showed me that he is a hell of a wrestler for the age he is.
yeah,
His expertise is just amazing. And Lance Archer is just a beast of a guy. That man is just like, yeah, he might not be the best in the ring, but the things that he can do at such a, you know, tall, big, stocky structure is just wow. He is very athletic in the ring. He's kind of like, Luchasaurus. He is a big man, athletic as all hell, and you can try to take him down, but you're really gonna have to use every ability that you have to take him down. But the thing is, I honestly, like, again, I would love for Moxley to do something more. I'd love to see Kingston do a little bit more. If a win like this can get them up in the ranks in the tag team division, I would be all for it. I just think that, again, you just gotta do a little bit more with them. And honestly, I'm okay with this one too. Cody Rhodes returns towards the
yeah,
end of you know an ending of Dynamite, and he beat down on Malachi Black. I was
yeah.
all for it. I knew that Malachi was going to show up and Cody Rhodes was going to eventually come back. It
Well, it
made.
was it was not before Rosario Dawson decided to assault Malachi Black herself because she was in the crowd
Hmm.
and Malachi was like kind of targeting her in a way, and then out comes Cody from the rafters. He's
Hmm.
coming down. Meanwhile, Malachi's attention draws towards Cody,
Hmm.
but here comes Rosario Dawson. She's got Malachi like in a chokehold, and essentially, and then Cody Rhodes goes through the barricade and then starts beating down Malachi. Gets thrown into the crowd,
Hmm.
into Grim and Quarantina. By the way, shouts out to those guys. And Grim actually getting a little physical with Malachi, but it is what it is. And yeah, so then it sets up a brawl in the stands.
Hmm.
Cody takes somebody's beer and mollywops Malachi Black with it. So
I'm
but
all.
it
I'm.
was a good angle, I will say
I
that.
honestly I like it because it builds up more into tonight. Actually, I think I don't know. It's either tonight or it's
No, it's
Friday.
tonight.
I honestly.
The Kingston and Suzuki the Suzuki Goon match though is on Rampage.
Yeah. I honestly think that Cody Rhodes returning made all the most sense. I just love that the storyline. I love where it's going. I think
Yeah,
that AEW is doing the right thing with the storyline with Malachi Black and Cody Rhodes, and it might be the best storyline that's going on right now.
I can agree with
Not
that.
saying that the other stuff isn't great. I like Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega. I hope it leads into a world title match at Full Gear. I hope that Malachi and Cody Rhodes can lead into a pay per view match. I think there's so much directions, and that's what makes me love AEW so much. Is there's just so many directions, you just don't know where they're gonna go with it. Of course, eventually it's gonna lead to what kind of direction, and then you already know what's gonna be match wise for the pay per view. But in a couple months, anything could happen from now until when Full Gear happens. But honestly, I like where they're heading it with it now. As far as who could win between Malachi Black and Cody Rhodes, it's tough to tell. I want to say it might be Malachi Black that gets another victory, but honestly, it wouldn't shock me if Cody Rhodes comes back and be like, beats Malachi Black and be like, look, you know, I came back. I wasn't done yet. It was just, something I had to take some time away type of thing. I'm back now. I beat Malachi Black. I think I'm ready for, you know, the beat Miro or regain my, TNT title back type of thing. So it could lead to anything. But then again, don't be shocked if Malachi Black wins and Cody's like, you know what, guys, I think it's finally time for me to hang it up. I want to be more of a father than a wrestler
I
type
want
of
to be an
thing.
EVP.
So don't be shocked if Cody Rhodes does lose and actually does end up in retire. I think it would be maybe the right time for him. Not saying that he hasn't, had he could still go and do great stuff as, with the Cody Rhodes figure, persona. But the thing is, like, don't be shocked if Malachi Black wins and it leads into something, even larger for him going forward. Honestly, if I think about anybody that has entered in from WWE into AEW, I think Malachi Black has been having a hell of a run in AEW
Yeah.
right now. I think he's, the hottest
He's
attraction.
definitely a lot more protected now in AEW than he was in WWE.
Yeah. And I think the next one might be like a Ruby Soho. I think, honestly, I really do think that she's going to beat Britt Baker. I like the stuff that was going on with them. Their promo this past Friday on Rampage. It was really really good.
Shots fired between both.
Yeah, and that's honestly, don't get me wrong. I know, you don't want those all the time, but you know what? It's the stuff that
It
you need.
works.
You need it. You need it between both of them because it's what makes people excited to want to see the match.
Yeah.
That match is actually going to be happening this week.
On Dynamite.
Honestly, don't be shocked if Ruby Soho does beat Britt Baker for the Women's World Title. But also, don't be shocked if Britt Baker does retain. Um, they could go in any direction with that, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, if you're going to have both women look good coming out of it, I would say have like maybe a time limit draw,
Mm-hmm.
or even if you can't go that route, like
It's kind of
maybe
tough to it's kind of tough to do that when it's a 60-minute time limit.
yeah, but at the same time, you don't really want Britt Baker to lose, but you also don't want Ruby to lose her first match. So you have to, or well, yeah, no, it would be Ruby's first match.
I honestly
so.
think it could very well go into like a double count out and then eventually
I don't
lead
know if
into
that
a
would,
full gear type of match. Because to me, I think you should have kept it for full gear. It would have made a
I
hell of a lot
agree.
more sense to have it instead of having it there. But then again, I can understand you have the biggest
The
crowd.
implications,
You
yeah.
have the biggest crowd. You have the biggest stage, the biggest crowd. You want to have pay per view style matches, so then you can really make sure that those fans, the biggest crowd that you're ever gonna have for AEW, whether it's a pay per view or anything else, you want to deliver. And honestly, I think AEW did the right thing with the matches, and I think they are gonna deliver. I think this is going to be honestly. I really do think that they should have had a special like a certain name for this. They should have done it like, hey, this is going to have like a special event. All it's is called is Dynamite Grand Slam or Rampage Grand Slam, which is cool and everything like that. I certainly think that they are going to have the bases loaded and hit a Grand Slam with these events. I really do think that's what it's going to be. And but then again, I honestly think that, like I said, Malachi Black has been looking good in AEW. Ruby Soho has been. I kind of like where Bryan Danielson's going. Adam Cole's been looking good. I honestly already, we said it before. Honestly, you look at all these former WWE stars going into AEW and already looking better than they did when they were in WWE. And I get it. Some wrestlers can make it work and others can't. I think somebody that isn't making it work for them is Miro. I think Miro is just about the same as he was in WWE. Yes, he's a very dominant TNT champion, but look at all the guys he's gone up against. Maybe
feel
except
like,
for Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston gave him a challenge. But again, look at the guys that he's gone up against. If you want to make him better than he was in WWE, have him do some credible stuff. You really haven't made him look credible as a guy. And yeah, you had him, team up with, gosh, you had him team
Kip
up.
Sabian.
Yeah, Kip Sabian, and go up against the best friends. I think that was nothing.
Well, you had the best man versus the best friends.
Honestly, I really do think that
But
having those two,
here's
that
my
was probably
thing.
the best thing for Miro was when that happened. But the thing is, ever since he's been on his own, he just really hasn't been that credible as a champion.
Here's my thing about Miro right now too is it feels like what WWE did with him when they first brought him in when he was like Alexander Rusev. Eventually, they shortened it to just Rusev, and when he was the U.S. champion, it kind of feels like that. Is like on this unstoppable run.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can beat him, but something tells me that after somebody does eventually beat him for the TNT Championship, it'll be just like when John Cena beat Rusev at the time for the U.S. Championship. He just kind of got like stuck in the mid card forever, and like he never really elevated from there. But at the same time, I feel like once Miro's time with the TNT Championship is over, they're gonna eventually build him up to be a credible contender for the AEW World Championship. At least that's my hope.
I mean, I would. That's what I'm hoping too. I'm hoping that's eventually going to be the goal. Because if it's not, then
You
again,
really
you're
royally messed up with Miro.
you're just literally doing nothing with him. Now, the cool thing, I'm finally happy that the Men of the Year is finally getting a shot, like a wrestling match.
Yeah.
Nothing against hearing Dan Lambert just going out there and spewing some bull crap.
Hey man,
I
like his promos because he just constantly craps on the roster and craps on AEW. I mean, granted, it's all in good fun, I'm sure, and it's all in character, but I think it's funny whenever he's like crapping on AEW and crapping on the wrestlers and the roster. It's like, it's just basically showing him like, hey, I got these guys that I train with for MMA. Why don't they get in the ring and they show you how it's really done?
Right.
Which, by the way, Paige Van Zant was on Dynamite. It was last week. She was on Dynamite, and not for nothing. I would love to see Paige Van Zant in the ring, in an AEW ring, just like kicking ass and taking names like she did in the world of UFC. So
yeah, honestly, I would. I don't know if you saw what Chris Jericho was saying on social media. He's like, bring out all these MMA guys. We're gonna, take them all out, type of thing. You better watch out what you wish for, Jericho, because I hate to say it. You're gonna have all those guys. What's gonna happen? You're gonna bring out all those guys, and then all your inner circle guys are gonna come out and save you.
No.
I think that's exactly what could happen.
Jericho said it best. He's been in a shoot fight with Brock Lesnar before. He's been in a shoot fight with Goldberg, where Goldberg is trained in MMA, and Jericho won that shoot fight. So he can he can handle his own when it comes to guys who are trained in mixed martial arts as well as being pro wrestlers.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I really do.
At the same time, he's going in. These are much different athletes. When they can and they will mess up Jericho really well if it gets to that point.
Right.
Which obviously I don't think it would, but
no, probably not.
You never know with these UFC guys.
But honestly, I'm really hoping that Chris Jericho and Jake Hager can beat the Men of the Year. But honestly, it's about time that they start doing something with both teams. They were just not doing anything, especially in the Men of the Year. They were literally like, oh well, here's my guys, they're looking good. I'm managing them, and every week I'm seeing them like, okay, when are they gonna do something? When are they gonna do something? When are they gonna do something? And then finally, this past week on Dynamite, they come out and they challenge, Inner Circle challenge them, and I'm like, finally, something that the Men of the Year can actually do. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're probably going in that match. They'll probably lose to the Inner Circle. But honestly, about time that they get a match in the shot and do something other than just spewing up bull crap that I could literally care less about. But then again, I hope that the Inner Circle can come into that match and shut them the hell up. And honestly, I really do think it's going to be a good back and forth type of style tag team match, and it make for some good TV. Um, Also, Jade Cargill remains undefeated against being Layla Hirsch, and then I'm looking at it this way as like, are you surprised? Like, are you even shocked? Like, I'm not really shocked. Like, they've been really protecting Jade Cargill very well. Her undefeated streak is still untouched. I feel bad for Layla Hirsch. I think they they had something really well. She is an amazing athlete, an amazing wrestler. I just think that AEW should do a little bit more with her.
I agree.
But
yeah, they kind of relegate her to like dark elevation, and maybe a Dynamite or Rampage appearance here and there. But like, she's good. Let her showcase her talent. Let her go up against somebody that's like actually going to be worth her time.
and I hope it's not something like it's because of her height and
That would be stupid.
because like Jay Cargill has that look, has that it factor. Like yeah, it might be true, but the thing is like she hasn't been really all that great in the ring. Honestly, the most credible match I think happened was when her and Shaq teamed up against Cody and Red Velvet. That was probably the best match that she has had as of late. All the other matches have been literally like squash matches. Yeah, I mean Layla Hirsch and Jay Cargill had a pretty good back and forth match, but like at the end of the day, did you expect anything less of Jay Cargill winning against Layla Hirsch? I didn't. I mean, I kind of figured that was probably going to be the thing, because yeah, it's cool, but the thing is, like, if she ends up going up and up and up the rings, and then like say going up against Ruby Soho or Britt Baker, and then she ends up losing, I'm like, was her having such a great undefeated streak worth it? Like in the end, like she's just gonna go lower, and then she'll get relegated back to where she was again. Like, see, like there's this. Don't get me wrong, I like AEW, but then sometimes there's things that I don't like about them, and then that may be something I don't like. Is like, yeah, you're building up Jade Cargill to be this um, mega athlete, unbeatable, super, strong, badass bitch.
I can.
I mean, she's that bitch for a reason. But the thing is, like, if you're not doing anything more than having her be up against these talents that aren't really doing much, then is she really credible as somebody that's being undefeated? You look at that and be like, no, she's definitely not.
Don't. And here's the thing too: is like I can kind of see where a lot of people come from when they talk about like, oh, AEW doesn't really have a credible women's division. You're right to a degree. It's like they really need to work on their women's division. They really need to work on like building up their women's division. Because like you have a lot of women on your roster. It's just like sometimes you don't really showcase them in the best way. And
Right.
even then, it's like you only have really like one or two
No, that's on.
women's matches
I
on
know.
Dynamite and Rampage, and it's like you can't have more.
That's what I'm saying. You're probably. That's why I'm pushing. I think Rampage should be 2 hours. Then you can start having a little bit more like women's matches on like a Rampage or something like that. And that's the only way I can think that you can start pushing that women's division.
But at the same time, Rampage, that's why I say like Rampage won't really do as well as we think it will for Rampage Grand Slam because of the fact that it is going to be that 2 hour show. It's after SmackDown. Rampage essentially will go until midnight. So I don't know I don't know how many people are actually going to stick around.
I don't know.
Like,
I think there's going to
with
be a lot
watching
more.
the pay-per-view.
I think there's going to be a lot
Or
more
not
people
watching the
sticking
pay-per-view,
around
but-
for it than you think, because you're in a
Oh,
city.
I'm
you're
talking
in a
about
city.
like watching it on TV. I don't know
I
how
know,
many people
probably
will,
not, but
tune in until midnight. But
right.
I'm sure everybody that's at Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens,
Oh yeah,
they're definitely going to stick around.
definitely going to.
Because
Especially
AEW
in a city that
fans
doesn't
are very
sleep.
committed.
Right.
They will like especially if they're in attendance, they will definitely stick around for every piece of action that, like,
Right.
they'll show up early for the darks. They'll be there for the dynamite. They'll even stick around for the Rampage taping after. So,
Yeah.
AEW fans are very committed.
Yeah, yeah, they are. Honestly, so we already talked about Moxley and Kingston, but they did beat up 2.0. They did beat them, which is honestly something I'm glad that they did because they just needed to get them out of the way.
Here's the
And then Suzuki and Archer, which we
Yeah.
already talked about, they brawl with them in the crowd, kind of like the same way as like a Malachi Black and
I did also see a bit of the ending to the Suzuki and like that brawl, or they eventually went back to the ringside area and then they brawled more in the ringside area. But then it ended basically with Suzuki and Archer in the ring and Suzuki saying Suzuki Gun Ichiban. So that's how that segment ended, but it ended going into, it ended the TV broadcast
yeah.
with them still in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual end of the segment was they brawled in the crowd, then they go back to ringside, and then they start brawling ringside. They take it into the ring, and I believe Suzuki hit a cradle pile driver, or I know Lance hit a blackout. So, but other than that, that was the end of that. And then they said Suzuki Gun Ichiban and all that. And then obviously you have the start of Rampage.
Yep, that's where I got it wrong. I'll definitely be here and say that I got it wrong and said that it was Cody and Malachi Black that ended it. No, it was actually
It was
Archer and
Archer and
Suzuki
Suzuki
and
with
Moxley and
Moxley and
Kingston that
Kingston.
ended the show off in style. I think that's a great way to end it. It's something that you want to know what the ending of it is going to be, and it's going to make people want to watch AEW even more for tonight and also Friday night. And as far as that, I think that it was nothing short of amazing. Now we go on to the Rampage side of things. Kind of figured this was going to happen, but Lucha Brothers retained their titles against the Buffalo Born Butcher and the Blade. It'd be cool to see the Butcher and Blade in Rochester. I mean, they'll be kind of still close to home, type of thing.
It's just sad that we never got to see Brody in
No,
Rochester.
I
I
know.
mean, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, the whole purpose of having Brody Lee like in AEW was so that he could debut in his hometown of Rochester, and then obviously we also would have had Broken Matt Hardy in
Yeah, I
Rochester,
know.
but things happened. COVID happened, had to be postponed 3 different times. But regardless, we're still going, and
Mm,
we're glad that it's now actually going to happen. It's set in stone for next week.
right.
But regardless, yes, Butcher and Blade had a good showing against the Lucha Brothers, but they
They did.
came up just a little short.
Um, I mean, Lucha Brothers have been really great as a tag team ever since they won those tag team titles.
Yeah.
It's always a question of who's next at this point. I'm glad that the Butcher and the Blade are back as a tag team. I think that they're definitely ones that will eventually get those tag team titles and um, be on the top of the mountain as far as that goes in the tag team division. But the thing is, the Lucha Brothers right now are just looking really, really good as a tag team. It did suck seeing Penta's mask getting all tied up, and then he had to,
He had to sacrifice his mask
mask.
just to save his championship.
Honestly, I know it was in the plans to eventually have the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks go after each other in a hair versus mask match. Honestly, I could see it happening because if they're already thinking about doing Matt Hardy versus Orange Cassidy for if Orange Cassidy loses, he loses his hair. The cool thing I would love to see is how come Matt Hardy can't sacrifice his hair? I know I don't want to see him bald. I really don't because it would look totally weird seeing him with long hair literally his whole entire career.
Well,
But
I say this.
I
If he
think it
doesn't
should be a
lose,
hair versus hair match.
I say this though. If he doesn't lose all of his hair, at least just cut it off and make it short.
Right.
Because then at least he has some sort of hair.
Because
not lose
it kind of looks like they're teasing that up. I kind of do like the whole, Matt Hardy going up against Orange Cassidy type of thing. Because I know Hardy Family Office and the Best Friends have had some bad things like that. Honestly, that's another thing too. I can't wait to see the Best Friends come back. I know Trent has been kind of injury prone the last few times he's been in the ring, but then again, I think once he is fully healthy, I think the Best Friends should have a nice run to eventually go back up. Because, man, if anybody remembers when they went up against Pride and Powerful,
oh man,
in
that
street fight,
yeah.
man, that was probably the best match they ever had on.
Yeah.
Best like hardcore style match.
It was a great match
between both tag teams. Man, I just hold a hell. I was looking at it as like, man, they're just going at each other, and
they tore the house down.
They did tear the house down.
But back to Rampage.
I originally had it down that the Bunny beat Anna Jay, but I think it was actually Anna Jay that beat the Bunny, if I remember correctly.
I wasn't paying too much attention to that match, but and I'm not trying to say that I wasn't watching the match. I did. I just there's a lot going on. There's a lot that happens throughout a wrestling show, and it's like sometimes if you blink you might miss something, and that's kind of what happened. Is maybe it was the Bunny that beat Anna Jay, maybe it was Anna Jay that beat the Bunny. Regardless, yeah.
I mean, it was an alright type of match. Anna Jay is coming.
There was a lot of potential outside interference.
Yeah, there was.
But
I mean, Anna Jay coming back off of injury has been really good. Yeah, she's had to deal with a lot of what's going on with the Dark Order. And the thing is, like we talked about it a couple of times before. It wouldn't even shock me if she ends up taking control of the Dark Order and brings them back together, type of thing. Because, or it wouldn't even shock me if she goes off on her own with Ty Conti and does her own thing with that. Don't be shocked if the Dark Order does eventually break up. It would suck to see it happening.
I was just about to say this too. Is Anna Jay may not be able to rely on the Dark Order, but at least she can rely on her friend Ty Conti. And you can always rely on your true friends, and her true friend, at least right now, is Ty Conti. She may have thought she had friends in the Dark Order, but the Dark Order right now can't even be trusted themselves.
Right.
So, but
exactly.
Who's to say that -1 might not be able to rally Dark Order together and actually get them to, but then again, we also haven't seen -1 in a while because he's got to focus on school, let's be real.
Right.
The kid's like 10, 11 years old. He's got to focus on school.
Exactly.
But at the same time, maybe they could do a video call to -1 or whatever.
But
and
don't
be like,
be
hey,
shocked if in Rochester somehow you see him there and controlling the Dark Order. So that'd be something to see. That'd be very cool.
Maybe.
I mean, because I'm
the
pretty
Webster natives. Yeah.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure they're still in Rochester or around that area.
I know when. Well, they might be in Jacksonville. I'm not too sure, but I don't see why they would. But I could see why, but then I couldn't see why if they were in Jacksonville. But regardless, like I said, -1 is in school. He's got to focus on school. So, and I'm sure, Amanda would like kind of drill it into him like, hey, I know you've got your wrestling stuff, but school is more important right now. So,
right.
Do your homework, get good grades, pay attention in class. So,
right.
And even then, I'm sure Amanda has like kind of talked to -1 and be like, this is what the guys would want you to do: is focus on school, get good grades. So,
Right. Exactly. This didn't honestly shock me that it was gonna eventually happen. Miro beat Fuego del Sol
Miro
again,
gets a car.
and Miro gets a used car that he might just sell or give it to his beautiful wife.
Which, by the way, who knows where his wife is actually going to end up? Because we haven't really heard a lot from Lana or CJ Perry, whatever you want to call her at this point. But, like, yeah, you know, and I remember hearing the promo package going into the match. He's looking up to God, but he's looking down on his wife, or he's going up for God, but going down for his wife, or
Yeah,
something like that.
it
It's
was
like,
like, come on now, really? Like,
all right,
you
Miro.
have to be letting us all know about that. Like, it's probably no doubt that it's actually happening, but come on now, you don't need to be sharing it for the whole world to hear.
And listen, we all know that your wife is attractive. We all know how much time you spend together. It's like they're, you know.
Right.
So.
But, yeah, Miro beat him. But, there's always a but. Is Sammy the next challenger for the title? I would be all for it. I think it's the right time for Sammy Guevara to go after the TNT title championship. I really do think that he's somebody that can bring a challenge to Miro. But the problem is he also somebody that's just going to end up getting tossed to the wayside against Miro and just get beaten down and beaten by Miro? I would love nothing more to see Sammy Guevara, a champion in AEW. I think he would be a great champion. But the thing is he the one that can actually take down Miro and win that title, though?
I think he could be a credible TNT champion. Matter of fact, I think he could even be like granted, I haven't really seen Kenny Omega like carrying it around with him these days, but at the same time, he is still the AAA Mega Champion. And honestly, I know they've fought for it before, but who's to say that maybe this time Sammy Guevara could actually beat Kenny Omega for the AAA Mega Championship? And not for nothing, I think Kenny Omega should like kind of start having every day, like not every day, but maybe start defending that AAA Mega Championship more than he does, because I don't think he even really defends it, or at least like if he does, then it's certainly not on AEW programming. But that's just my opinion. Maybe you can open that forbidden door between like AEW and AAA, and just have Kenny Omega defend his AAA title on AEW.
I mean, probably eventually get to that point, but I think that Sammy Guevara is definitely going to be the next challenger for the title, and when it's going to be, I have no idea. It might be at Full Gear, which I would be totally fine with, but other than that, I have no idea. But honestly, I think that's going to be concluding this episode of No Final Bell. Definitely check up on our reactions and stuff, as we will definitely be watching Dynamite and Rampage on our TVs from Arthur Ashe Stadium, the biggest event in AEW history as of yet. Don't be shocked if they eventually do branch out into bigger venues and stuff like that. But the fact that they can sell out a stadium of that like caliber,
18,000, maybe even 20,000 people,
just already makes you think that, wow, I can't believe they've already gotten that far
and it's
in such a short amount of time.
It's crazy too when you consider that Dave Meltzer 3 years ago said that an independent promotion can't sell out a building that seats like at least 10,000 people, and yet here we are 3 years later, AEW selling out Arthur Ashe Stadium.
Mm-hmm. So, AEW has just been shutting up the haters. They're going to literally keep on getting haters. All the WWE people, crapping and shitting on all elite wrestling is just unbelievable at this point. And then when you tell them, hey, you tell them all the facts, they just end up being quiet about it. Like, then my thought process about it is I would hate to keep on, bringing this up, but like, then why are you commenting on like stuff about like all elite wrestling anyway? Like, it just makes you, um,
It just makes you a
it
hypocrite.
just makes you a hypocrite, and then you just don't know the facts. All you want to talk about is, well, WWE's been around a lot longer. They have our crap going, right now. Yeah, that might be the truth. They've been a professional wrestling company a hell of a lot longer than, um, all elite wrestling. And yes, they beat out WCW, and um, then they beat out Impact when when it was TNA, and they were trying to compete with
Well, that's
WWE.
the thing too. They couldn't
But
even
the thing
really
is, like, yeah, I know they're not the
compete that
longest
successfully.
professional wrestling company out there, but the thing is, everybody's always gonna say how they're better than any other promotion out there, and honestly, I'm just gonna be here and say no, they are not the better company out of it, and they're not the better company anymore, at least in a sense, because when you get beaten out, um, in the most important demographic, it means a you're not doing what you need to be doing to prepare yourselves for that demographic, especially in WWE, and B, you're catering more to the future, and it's cool and everything. You want to cater more to the little children, but the thing is, eventually they're gonna see what ends up happening in WWE, and getting to be teenagers, and they're gonna see him like, I can't believe I liked this for so long. It was cool when I was a kid, but now it's not cool now. And that's how it was for Marty and I. Like, when we were kids, like, oh man, this is awesome, this is great wrestling. And we see it now and be like, I can't believe we like this, because it's all
Yeah.
literally the same crap spewing up every single time. It's always Brock Lesnar coming back. It's always Goldberg coming back. It's always John Cena coming back. It's always Roman Reigns as a world champion. It's always John Cena saying that he can come back, and literally saying that the reason I come back is because you guys can't do your type of jobs, which I'm probably saying he's probably saying nothing more than the truth at that point. And then you still have all these other guys coming back and stuff like that. Then you look at other things like NXT has had a rebrand already and all the other stuff.
Yeah,
And
don't get me started on the rebrand of NXT.
you look at that and then you think like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your company and stuff like that? And that's honestly why I have to the rant here is like, you just need to know the facts before you spew out bull crap that you don't even know about, type of thing. I mean, I get it. It's not the best thing in the world, and yes, there is like a lot of things that they need to clean up. But in a company that has been around a hell of a lot shorter time, and already selling out and doing what they need to be, and getting into like the million viewer, a million views like consistently, beating out the company that matters and the most important demographic, you look at that and be like, you mean to tell me that going more towards the kids is more important than going after the guys that have been watching your stuff, been there for the 90s when it was the most important era of your company, and then you just think that you're gonna shit on them with bringing out back guys like that? Yeah, it makes them happy for the moment, but when they see that, you know,
It's a long term story, then they just get turned off easily.
the thing that turned me off a long time ago when, you know, oh, I think they're gonna change. I think they're gonna change. I think they're gonna change, and then they don't. And it's like, you know what? I'm done, because like I've always keep on coming back thinking it's gonna
Hmm.
change, and it doesn't. Where AEW, they're willing to change. They're willing to listen. They're willing to learn from their mistakes and move forward. And that's the reason why they've been building up so much. It doesn't feel like a WCW at all, because when WCW knew that they had mistakes, they just kept on, you know, going through with whatever plans they were having. They weren't
Yeah.
working on their mistakes. AEW is working on their mistakes, and they're bringing in um, the talent that is going to help them move into the future. So honestly, I look at that and be like, that's the main reason why, you know, we like them. But I think that's enough spewing of ranting and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Please follow us on social media, like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel so you don't miss content like this and others. Like,
Tap the bell so you never miss an episode.
yes, don't miss out on Tinkle Sports Talk. Don't miss out on Out of Turn 4. Don't miss out on No Final Bell, because those are the three things that are going super great right now. Make sure to you know watch, Tinkle, like I said, Tinkle Sports Talk on Sundays at 9 a.m. Don't forget to watch, Turn 4 on Tuesdays. And don't forget to watch this on Wednesdays. As far as that, everybody, we're going to sign off on here. See you next week. And also, make sure that you keep up on Arthur Ashe Stadium and the Grand Slam that there is of AEW.